Hello. Today we're going to take a look and hopefully play through a single campaign of Unconditional Surrender, World War II in Europe, from GMT Games and designed by Salvatore Vasta, who supports this game fantastically across the forums. This is a strategic stroke operational level game. I haven't played strategic or operational level games for a long time really. I've been focusing on tactical level games such as Fields of Fire, Combat Commander Europe, The Last 100 Yards, that kind of thing, but decided to get myself a strategic level game, and oh boy, I absolutely love this game. This game has finally, in my humble opinion, resolved many of the issues of older games of this level, which attempt to cover the entirety of the globe, or for instance in this case the Western Front, Eastern Front and Mediterranean theatres in Europe. It solved a lot of those issues, and the main one being counter density on the map. Older games tended to suffer from huge amounts of counters on the map, stacks 4, 5, 6 high sometimes, involving masses of calculations for combat resolution, only to arrive at a similar result as this game can do, with very low counter density and pretty fast play rules. Today we are going to have a look at a single scenario, the Balkans campaign, which I haven't played yet. I've played 3 or 4 scenarios, haven't done the Balkans campaign yet. Haven't attempted the main event, which is 1939 all the way to 44, 45 or even 46, depending on how the scenario goes. Certainly haven't attempted that yet. I'm told that's around, I don't know, 50 hours of gameplay. But that's certainly an ambition. You'll notice actually that this is a paper map. Really excited today to get this out on the table again after 2 or 3 weeks. It's just the colourful nature of the map, the lack of clutter on the map. I mean, look, it shows all the main map features that you need. It has the main cities. It has any terrain on it that would actually affect the outcome of combat, and then does away with the minutiae. We've got the plains, the steppe of Russia there, the Pripyat marshes. You have woodland or forested areas. You have transport routes. You have mountains and rough, rivers, cities and industrial areas. Capital cities are shown with those red stars, look, or rather red circles with the white star. And of course the sea zones down into the Med and North Africa. I have all the player aids that I'm going to need for this campaign set up around the map. A couple of counter trays there with the most used counters. Very simple. We'll quickly go through those and then we'll start the scenario. Unconditional surrender. So here we are. We've set up the game as per the scenario instructions. This campaign, this game, is only 2 turns. It consists of 2 turns each turn. in unconditional surrender represents abstractly 1 month. So 2 turns, logically, represents up to 2 months of historical play. So 1 month per turn or part thereof. Within the 2 turns, the Axis forces, which is mainly represented by the Germans and their Italian allies, plus a little bit of Bulgaria and Hungary garrison forces. Within those 2 turns, the German forces, or the Axis forces, I keep making that mistake, has to cause the collapse of the whole area, being Yugoslavia and Greece. They have to conquer Yugoslavia and Greece within 2 turns. Sounds like quite a tall order. Historically, if memory serves, the Axis forces achieved this inside of a month. During April 1941. And the background, again, stretching my memory, I think in the last quarter of 1940, something like that, the Italians invaded Greece. You can see them there, those 2 Italian units and a convoy supply unit situated in Albania there. They assaulted Greece in the last quarter of 1940. The plucky Greeks pushed them back across the mountains, and there's a Greek unit, albeit only a garrison unit, that sits there in that mountainous terrain just on the Greek border. So we're picking this up in April 1941 after the Germans had decided to assist Italy and to deny the Greek peninsula to the Allied forces in the shape, in this instance, of the UK. In fact, you can see the British expeditionary force based there in a heck of a strategic location on the main route down to Athens. Let's have a quick overview of the forces. You can see that the Germans in light grey there set up with very few forces on the board. Down on the Greek border there, you can see an infantry unit and a panzer unit, the 1st Panzer Army, situated there just across the border from Salonika. And then moving up slightly, 2nd Panzer, just across the border there, looking at Belgrade, across the river. Support from Luftflotte 4, based just below Budapest. And finally, another infantry unit here, facing Zagreb. So very few counters on the board, supported by a Hungarian garrison unit. Garrison units are shown by having a white stripe on them, and you can see that in fact most of the defending Yugoslavian units that are available for the defence of Yugoslavia are in fact garrison units. These are under strength, without a lot of support, not suited for fighting in the field as such. There's an Italian garrison unit there in our northwest corner, based in the port of Trieste. So yeah, the Yugoslavian units situated throughout Yugoslavia. We've done the German units. Where are we? Back down into Greece. The Greek units in Albania there that we've already discussed. The BEF are situated on that main transport unit route, blocking the route down to Athens. That's going to be a very important little unit. Weak forces deployed by the British there but in a very strategic position. And why is that? And finally, the British have their Mediterranean fleet just off Athens there. I've placed it just out of the way of Athens port, although really it's based in the port. Underneath that, the Mediterranean fleet there is a convoy unit, really only on the map so as to provide supply via the sea lanes for the British forces. So the Axis then have 2 turns in which to conquer Yugoslavia and Greece. If we quickly look at Greece for a moment, if those German units can take Salonika, which you see there defended by that green Greek unit, that's a full strength unit, an infantry unit. So if the Axis can take Salonika, that's an Allied city, and that will reduce the will of the Greeks by 2 points. Just remember that for a second. If they can take Athens, the capital city, it will reduce the will of the Greeks to continue by 4 points. Now let's go to the setup on the national player boards. Let's look at the Allied setup. In this particular scenario, the British do not need to track factories or production. Only the Greeks and the Yugoslavians need to do that, and because it's they that need to be conquered, only the Greek and Yugoslavian national will, so that yellow trail there, that's the Western national will, only the Greeks and Yugoslavian national will needs to be displayed for the benefits of this game. The Greek national will, there it is in light green, starts at 4. If it reduces to 0, Greece is conquered. So now then you can see why this piece of information is important. By taking Salonika, that will reduce the Greek national will by 2. By taking Athens, it will reduce the Greek national will by 4. Ergo, Athens must be taken by the end of game turn 2. Otherwise, the Allies will win. So that's how the Allies can win this scenario, by delaying the Germans just long enough to stop them taking Athens. And what's sitting in the way? The BEF. So the Germans have no option but to destroy or push the BEF out of the way so they can get to Athens, because that's the only route. And all the British need to do, along with the Greeks, is to delay the Germans long enough to do that. So, without further ado, I think first of all, very quickly, any support. Let's have a look. The Allies, they're sitting there in the events box. Look, 2 support units, 2 tokens for ground support. So twice during this scenario of 2 game turns, twice, if necessary, the Allies can choose to give ground support to a unit. The ground support can only be given to, for instance, the Greeks or the Yugoslavians. If we look over in the Axis support events, they too have 2 ground support units and an airdrop, which just might be essential considering what we've just been discussing. So we need to decide when those will be used. You see, if you use them and they're not very effective, let's say, then you may have wasted them, because once you've used one of those tokens, you roll a dice, and the result of the dice tells us how many game turns ahead you can use that unit again. And in a scenario that only has 2 game turns, you need to be a bit careful as to whether you're going to commit those or not, or rather what combat you're going to commit those to. So we will come back to the area. Oh, we've set up the game turn marker over on the game turn track. There it is, in 1941, sitting on April, and it will end in May. I've rolled for the weather, and in the cold zone it's poor weather. We don't have to worry about that because our scenario takes place in the mild and the warm zone, both of which during April rolled for fair weather. And I think that's just about it, and we can actually crack on with turn 1. I'm excited to see how this plays out. It's quite a challenge for the Axis.